It's me or them.
Molly,
you can't wake up and be Stephen A. It takes work. In the end, we all have people to answer to.
Molly Qerim's sudden exit from ESPN shocked everyone across the sports world. But now she's finally breaking her silence. And in a wild twist, she's pointing the finger straight at Stephen A. Smith, accusing him of being the real reason she's gone. Stephen A. has built a career calling out players, coaches, and even executives. But this time, the fire might be aimed right back at him. This isn't just another network shakeup. This could be the drama ESPN never saw coming. Let's dig in. Molly Qerim, a beloved sports broadcaster who joined ESPN back in 2006, has been one of the network's most recognizable faces. Starting off on digital and mobile platforms before moving to on-air roles, she became the permanent host of First Take in 2015, sitting right beside Stephen A. Smith and helping turn the show into one of ESPN's biggest powerhouses ever. The program even hit record-breaking viewership in 2023, making it one of the network's crown jewels. But here's where things get crazy, and most people completely missed it. Molly's exit didn't come with a press release, a farewell montage, or even a final goodbye episode. Instead, the bombshell dropped through an Instagram story where she thanked fans and colleagues, calling her years at ESPN a dream come true. She ended with a mysterious "stay tuned," teasing future projects, but gave zero hints about why she was leaving or who was behind it. Then came the real shocker.
Last night, she abruptly resigned as the host of the show. And to say that I'm quite sad about it is an understatement. Molly is a friend. Molly is a co-worker. Molly is somebody that I have leaned on many occasions in the past, as she has done when it comes to me.
On Monday, September 15th, Molly walked into the First Take studio, did her job like any normal day, wrapped up the show, and that was it. No tears, no farewell, no heads up to the crew. The next morning, boom, her exit hit the internet like a grenade. The low-key goodbye clashed hard with what came next. A sudden and immediate resignation that sped up what insiders say was supposed to be a slow, end-of-year transition. Word got out after Sports Business Journal leaked details of her early departure, and suddenly, everyone inside ESPN was scrambling for answers. Think about that. She was supposed to stay for months, but overnight, it all changed. Something serious went down behind closed doors. This wasn't your average career move. This felt calculated, like someone had pushed the eject button without warning. ESPN was blindsided, and the signs were all over the place in how they handled the fallout. Sources confirmed that contract talks were ongoing. ESPN wanted her to stay, even offering a fresh deal. But Molly walked away instead, saying she wanted to explore new opportunities. Still, the real twist came from how Stephen A. Smith reacted when the news broke. According to people close to production, Stephen A. found out about her exit almost the same time as the public did. And his live reaction said it all. You could hear the shock in his voice during that broadcast. It wasn't polished or prepared. It was raw, it was real, and it screamed damage control. And when you look at the timeline, the whole thing feels suspicious. The sudden announcement, the rushed exit, the network scrambling, it all points to one thing. This wasn't a clean break. Something, or someone, forced Molly Qerim out faster than anyone expected. And that's exactly why fans think Stephen A. Smith might have had a hand in it. ESPN's president of content, Burke Magnus, came forward with a polished statement, thanking Molly Qerim for her years of dedication and professionalism. He praised her poise, her skill, and the way she helped turn First Take into one of ESPN's crown jewels since 2006. Magnus even admitted the network wanted her to stay, offering new opportunities beyond the show. But in the end, the negotiations just didn't line up with what Molly wanted. Now here's where things start to twist. Magnus insisted this was nothing more than a straightforward business decision. No drama, no controversy, just business as usual. He even mentioned a 30 to 45-day trial period to test out potential replacements, name-dropping ESPN regulars like Shea Cornette, Christine Williamson, and Monica McNutt as possible successors. Sounds clean-cut, right? Well, not quite. If everything was so simple, why did it go down so suddenly? Why the rush, the panic, and that clear sense of damage control? And even more suspicious, why did Stephen A. Smith sound genuinely blindsided and emotional when he addressed Molly's departure on air? The truth lies deep in the messy web of relationships, power struggles, and internal politics brewing inside ESPN for years.
To be blunt, it came as a shock. I was not aware that this is something that she was contemplating doing. But in the end, she made her decision. And we have to move on as a show. I don't like it. I'm not happy about it. Because I appreciate her and what she has meant to me, what she has meant to the show, what she has meant to the network, what she's meant to the business. And I'm going to miss her.
This wasn't just a host walking away from a show. This was a pressure cooker finally exploding. Behind that professional smile and polished goodbye was months, maybe years, of frustration, miscommunication, and tension that had been quietly bubbling under the surface. And the biggest clue to that tension? It's hidden right there in Molly's farewell message. In her Instagram story, she thanked ESPN, her colleagues, her fans, and teased exciting future projects. But one thing was missing. She never mentioned Stephen A. Smith by name. Not once. That might sound small, but in TV land, that's huge. When you've shared a set, a spotlight, and a decade-long partnership, skipping your co-host's name isn't just an oversight. It's a statement. Just think about it. When Shannon Sharpe left Undisputed, he gave Skip Bayless his props. When Max Kellerman left First Take, there was at least mutual respect on air. But Molly? Complete silence. That says everything.
Do I have an idea? Of course I do. Am I going to share it with you? No. Because again, that's her story to tell.
For years, Molly and Stephen A. sold the image of being this unstoppable duo. Smooth chemistry, quick debates, professional unity. They were the face of ESPN mornings. But that missing acknowledgement shattered that image in seconds. It hinted that maybe, just maybe, the on-screen harmony was hiding serious behind-the-scenes friction. Let's not forget, Molly's career wasn't built overnight. Before ESPN, she made her mark at CBS Sports and NFL Network, and she's been open about personal challenges, including her battle with endometriosis. She earned respect in an industry that's tough on women, especially those in high-profile positions. Her official resignation on September 16, 2025, was framed as a voluntary departure, not a firing. But make no mistake, the way it all unfolded didn't look voluntary at all.
Now, the last part of it is, this is the twist. She wanted to do other stuff. No, basically. You want to host your own show? No, basically. You want more money? Not much. Now, who signs off on all the money there? Think about it. Think about it. The bosses. But who are the bosses? That's Stephen A. Smith as well.
The tension between Molly and Stephen A. had been brewing quietly, and now it's bursting into the open for everyone to see. Because behind every polished press release and calm corporate statement, there's always a story waiting to blow the lid off. And this one's just getting started. The plot just keeps getting juicier. Right after Molly Qerim's shocking exit hit the headlines, ESPN's president of content, Burke Magnus, tried to clear the air, telling The Athletic that the abrupt timing was only because of a leak. He said ESPN had already been planning a 30 to 45-day tryout period to test out replacements. But wait, if that's true, it raises a big question. If they were already prepping to replace her, why were they still negotiating a new deal with her at the same time? Something about that doesn't add up.
Perkins had his deal. And when Perkins was up, remember? Perkins was getting a day job rate, and he turned that into $700,000 a year job. Perkins just talked about that recently, about how Stephen A. Smith has that pull. Stephen A. Smith even talked about that when he checked Cam Newton recently, talking about, hey, I've hooked a lot of guys up with money around here.
This is where things start to peel back layer by layer, revealing the hidden power games, clashing egos, and behind-the-scenes moves that most fans never get to see. Molly's departure wasn't just about contracts or scheduling. This was about power, about control, and about who really calls the shots inside ESPN's biggest morning show. And at the center of it all, Stephen A. Smith. Now here's where it gets deep. Because Stephen A.'s response to Molly's exit said everything without him having to say much at all. On camera, he played it cool, professional, respectful, and just a little bit sad. He said he was surprised, caught off guard, and wished her well. But listen closely, and you'll hear it. That careful tone, that strategic pause, that hint of calculation. He wasn't just reacting, he was controlling the narrative. What's fascinating is that while Stephen A. appeared emotional, he was very selective about what details he shared or didn't share. That restraint didn't go unnoticed. The moment he spoke publicly about it, the internet went into detective mode. Critics pounced after his comments on the Speakeasy podcast, where hosts Emmanuel Acho, Kieran Hickey Simple, and LaShawn McCoy accused him of fanning the flames instead of calming them. They called out how Stephen A. used phrases like abruptly resigned and teased private reasons, which only made fans believe something explosive had gone down. Acho flat out said that Smith's half-answers and cryptic tone did nothing but feed the speculation and make the situation 10 times bigger than it needed to be. That kind of criticism cuts deep, because what they were really saying is that Stephen A. wanted the buzz, that his reaction wasn't clumsy, it was calculated. Every word, every pause, every "I can't speak on that," it all worked perfectly to stir up attention around First Take, right as it was losing one of its key stars. And when you look at Stephen A.'s actual position inside ESPN, that theory suddenly makes a whole lot of sense. See, he's not just the loudest voice on First Take. He's also an executive producer, meaning he has power over hiring, casting, creative direction, and even contract talks for other people on the show. That's right, Stephen A. doesn't just debate, he decides. Add to that his massive $40 million a year deal, and you start to see just how untouchable he's become inside the network. He's more than a personality. He's a brand, a boss, and a business all rolled into one. So when someone like Molly Qerim, who's shared the stage with him for nearly a decade, suddenly walks away under mysterious circumstances, it's hard to believe it's just about contracts. With that much influence, nothing around Stephen A. happens by accident. And that's why, when you really break it down, Molly's departure doesn't look like a random career move. It looks like the result of power shifting behind closed doors and the cracks in ESPN's empire finally starting to show. This wasn't just about ESPN not paying Molly Qerim what she was worth. This was about Stephen A. Smith possibly refusing to go to bat for his co-host of 10 years when she needed him the most. And that's where former ESPN analyst Marcellus Wiley's take blows this whole story wide open. On his podcast, Wiley didn't hold back. He hinted that Molly's shocking exit had less to do with timing and more to do with money, power, and loyalty. Wiley claimed that behind closed doors, Molly had been pushing for a raise, reportedly aiming for around $500,000 a year, a fair number considering her role and seniority.
The one thing that was unexpected was the timing of all this, Magnus told Dice. She, Molly, put out a statement because there was a report on it, so it kind of got out of our respective controls once that happened.
But when you stack that next to Stephen A.'s staggering $20 million salary, it's not even close. That's a 40-to-1 pay gap, and according to Wiley, Stephen A., who had the pull to speak up for her, chose not to. That's where the story takes a darker turn. Wiley suggested that Molly wasn't just underpaid, she was undervalued, both financially and professionally. Because at ESPN, it's not just about money, it's about influence, about who has the juice to get things done. And Stephen A. Smith? He's not just another talking head, he's one of the most powerful figures in sports media, someone whose word can make or break another person's deal. Wiley's analysis exposed something fans rarely see, the brutal hierarchy behind ESPN's polished image. Stephen A. has reportedly advocated for certain colleagues in the past, even helping push contracts through for contributors he liked. But when it came to Molly, crickets. That silence spoke volumes.
So when that report comes out, I guess it triggers her, or more importantly, she's like, why am I sitting in a situation that I know won't get better? Think about it, you too. Beat it up in the comments, tell me your thoughts about it, but when you know you need to do something, and you know it's best for you, what you waiting for?
So now the real question is, where did Molly stand in that hierarchy? Why didn't Stephen A. use his clout to keep her on board the way he had for others? Could their relationship have soured long before her exit? Because when you look back at the last few years, the cracks start to show, and they're impossible to ignore. On screen, Molly and Stephen A. always looked tight, bouncing off each other, trading barbs, keeping things lively for the cameras. But off camera, that chemistry may have been nothing more than polished professionalism hiding growing tension. There were signs of friction everywhere once you start connecting the dots. In December 2024, things got noticeably heated during a first take debate about Bill Belichick's potential coaching gig at UNC. Molly challenged Stephen A., accusing him of prioritizing box office appeal and ignoring smaller market stories. And the back and forth wasn't playful this time.
Think about if you're Molly, you're working at a network where Mina Kimes is making way more money than you, and Mina Kimes is the number what on what show, right? You're number 2 on the number 1 show, and she is what on what shows, right? So your point is like, and you see Malika Andrews, all that, that's a different lane, that's a whole different animal, different beast.
You could feel the shift in tone. It was sharp, personal, and uncomfortable. Then came January 2024, when things really went off script. During a segment about career evolution in sports broadcasting, Stephen A. made a joke comparing Molly's journey from host to supermodel status. Instead of laughing it off, she muttered, "What the double star?" under her breath. And yes, it was caught live on camera. That clip spread across social media within minutes, fans arguing whether it was frustration, shade, or something deeper. That viral moment exposed something raw, that Molly wasn't just playing along anymore. She was fed up and people noticed. Behind that polished ESPN set, something had shifted. Respect, boundaries, or maybe even trust. So when you put it all together, the pay gap, the lack of support, the subtle on-air tension, the picture becomes painfully clear. This wasn't just a professional split. It was the fallout of a partnership that had quietly broken long before the cameras stopped rolling. But maybe the most revealing crack in the whole story came from what fans now call the laptop incident in June 2025, a moment that seemed small on the surface, but said everything about where things stood between Molly Qerim and Stephen A. Smith. During a live broadcast, cameras accidentally caught a glimpse of Stephen A.'s laptop screen. And before things could spiral, Molly quickly and calmly told him to close it, warning that it could expose private messages. She was clearly trying to save him from public embarrassment. But here's where the tension showed. Stephen A. hesitated.
The details, quite frankly, are none of y'all business. But it's not as if I know all the details. It was a contract negotiation that was going on. ESPN certainly did not want to lose her. But in the end, rather, she made a decision to walk away from the show effective immediately, as you see from her Instagram post, her Instagram story.
That pause, that flicker of annoyance before he complied, set off a wave of online speculation. People flooded social media saying he didn't want to listen and she tried to help him, but he brushed her off. It was subtle, but the energy was off, and viewers felt it. Now, any one of these moments, the pay gap, the awkward exchanges, the viral clips, might seem harmless on their own. But when you string them together across 10 long years of working side by side, the cracks start to look more like fault lines. Add in the power imbalance, the contract battles, and the lack of advocacy, and suddenly you've got a full-blown story of loyalty tested and trust eroded. Marcellus Wiley hit the nail on the head when he pointed out how Molly's farewell message, the one that completely left out Stephen A.'s name, wasn't just an oversight, it was deliberate. A final, silent message of resentment from someone who felt betrayed by a colleague who could have had her back but chose not to. According to Wiley, her abrupt exit wasn't emotional or impulsive. It was strategic. A move meant to make ESPN look inward and expose just how fractured the relationships behind First Take had become. He argued that it was framed as business tension only to avoid confirming what insiders already suspected, that things between Molly and Stephen A. were far more personal than the network wanted to admit. And that's the most damning part of it all. The idea that Stephen A., with all his influence and power at ESPN, simply did nothing when it mattered most. He could have used his pull to keep his co-host secure, to even the playing field, to show loyalty after 10 years of building a juggernaut together. But instead, he stayed silent. If that's true, it opens up some serious questions about loyalty, fairness, and how brutal the business side of sports media can really be. Behind the smiles and polished panels, this was a lesson in how influence works in high-stakes television, where friendships are fragile and power always wins. So let's talk about what happened next. The immediate aftermath of Molly's exit and how ESPN scrambled to control the chaos. Because the network's response spoke volumes. On paper, they called it a straightforward business decision with no controversy. But the speed of their reaction said otherwise. Here's the wild part. ESPN did something it never does. Normally, when someone leaves the company, they put out a quick statement, wish them luck, and move on. But not this time. This time, Burke Magnus himself jumped in, giving detailed interviews to The Athletic, trying to explain the situation point by point. That move was unheard of and instantly raised eyebrows across the industry. Why go to those lengths unless the network was worried? Because they were. ESPN wasn't just losing a popular host. They were trying to protect their image and shield their flagship show from turning into a public relations nightmare. The optics of a beloved female host walking away while the face of the network looked untouchable? That's a storm ESPN didn't want brewing. And the more insiders spoke, the clearer it became. This wasn't just a professional shakeup. It was a collision of ego, loyalty, and power, and the fallout had only just begun. Former ESPN star Marcellus Wiley didn't just throw opinions into the mix. His breakdown peeled back the curtain on how power, loyalty, and money really work inside the walls of ESPN. His insight was blunt, eye-opening, and downright messy in the best way. According to Wiley, Molly Qerim's exit wasn't a sudden decision. It was the result of years of quiet frustration. She had reached a breaking point, realizing that no matter how hard she negotiated or how long she stayed, things simply weren't going to change. The writing was on the wall, her role wasn't growing, her pay wasn't matching her impact, and the people with the power to fix that didn't. So instead of dragging through another round of "we'll talk soon" meetings, she walked immediately. And honestly, when you see the imbalance behind the scenes, her move starts to make perfect sense. Wiley also pulled back the curtain on one of ESPN's most uncomfortable truths: the massive pay gaps that exist between different on-air talents. He even pointed out that other ESPN personalities like Mina Kimes were reportedly making far more than Molly, despite not co-hosting the network's biggest and most watched morning show. That's wild. This exposes something deeper. ESPN doesn't value every type of role equally, even when those roles drive ratings and shape the brand's entire identity. Being the co-host of First Take might look glamorous on screen, but behind the scenes, it clearly wasn't being treated with the same financial respect. And that right there, that quiet, systemic imbalance, speaks volumes about how gender dynamics play out in major sports media. Because let's be real, the gender gap in pay and recognition isn't just a talking point, it's a pattern. When you line up the contracts, the bonuses, and the promotional opportunities, the difference between how female hosts and male stars are valued becomes impossible to ignore. It's like two different rule books being used inside the same building. But even beyond the money, this situation comes down to something more personal: loyalty. Wiley emphasized that Stephen A. Smith's reaction to Molly's departure was telling, not because of what he said, but because of how he said it. His tone was polite, his words were polished, but the phrasing was too careful, too rehearsed. He acted like he didn't know all the details, saying things like, "It's between her and ESPN." Yet in the same breath, he admitted it was about contract negotiations. That contradiction gave away everything. It was as if he wanted to sound sympathetic without actually taking responsibility or showing that he was in the loop. That kind of doublespeak doesn't come from ignorance. It comes from strategy. He was choosing every word to stay clear of controversy while still appearing concerned. And that's where it hits hardest. Because when you've shared a desk, a show, and a decade-long career, silence can say more than any statement ever could. In the end, Wiley's analysis paints a sharp, uncomfortable truth. This wasn't just about money or contracts. It was about how influence, gender, and loyalty collide in the cutthroat world of sports television, and how one woman finally decided to stop playing the game by someone else's rules. Stephen A. Smith is walking a razor's edge, trying to look like the caring co-host while quietly protecting his own power and image inside ESPN. It's a delicate balancing act, and it hasn't gone unnoticed. His carefully worded statements and emotional tone might have sounded respectful on the surface, but to many, it came off as strategic damage control, not genuine support. That's why the backlash hit so hard. Industry peers didn't stay silent, especially Emmanuel Acho, who called him out directly on the Speakeasy podcast. Acho's words were cutting. He accused Stephen A. of using Molly's departure to generate views and headlines instead of shielding a longtime colleague from public scrutiny. Acho didn't hold back, saying, "Molly was your sidekick for 10 years. We don't need to know she abruptly resigned. Protect her at all costs. She didn't want it to leak. But now, Stephen A., you're the one who told us she resigned." That kind of criticism doesn't just sting. It exposes a deeper flaw in the way loyalty works in television. Acho's point was simple but powerful. If Stephen A. truly respected and valued Molly after 10 years together, he would have handled her exit differently. He wouldn't have added fuel to the fire or dropped details that made her look unstable. Instead, he could have shielded her from all the noise and kept the focus on gratitude, not gossip. But he didn't. And that silence, that lack of protection, spoke volumes. This isn't just about two coworkers going separate ways. It's a masterclass in how power, ego, and relationships collide in media. The Molly Qerim situation exposes what happens when on-screen chemistry meets off-screen politics. The same forces that build stars can just as easily break them. And the fallout? Massive. The ongoing speculation about Molly's next chapter has become its own news cycle. Every sports blog, talk show, and Twitter thread is buzzing with questions. Where will she go next? Will she start her own show? And what does this mean for First Take's future? Because, let's be honest, replacing a host like Molly isn't just about finding someone to read lines. It's about recreating that magic, that balance of intelligence, wit, and presence that kept First Take alive for years. ESPN isn't just filling a seat. They're trying to rebuild a dynamic that took a decade to perfect. And that's no easy task. But the deeper lesson in all this goes far beyond First Take. It's about the brutal reality of media careers, where success on screen doesn't guarantee protection behind the scenes. It's a world where you can be celebrated one day and replaced the next, where relationships that look unbreakable on air might be crumbling privately under corporate pressure and ego clashes. For Molly Qerim, this wasn't just an exit, it was a declaration of independence. By walking away instead of waiting out her contract, she made it clear she was done being undervalued. She chose self-respect over silence, betting on her talent to carry her forward rather than staying stuck in a system that kept her boxed in. That's power. And for Stephen A. Smith, this whole saga exposes both the reach of his influence and its limits. He may dominate the airwaves, but moments like this remind everyone that even the biggest voice in sports media can't control how people perceive his actions. His handling of Molly's departure will likely be studied for years as an example of how not to manage a colleague's exit under the public eye. As for ESPN, this moment is a test, a major one. The network has to rebuild First Take's chemistry, protect its image, and prove it can handle internal shakeups without losing credibility. Their next moves, from how they choose Molly's replacement to how they address the public fallout, will show whether they've learned from this mess or are just repeating history. And beyond ESPN, this story serves as a reality check for the entire sports media industry. It's a reminder that behind every smiling broadcast, there are egos, contracts, politics, and power plays shaping every word we see on screen. Relationships that once looked unbreakable can fracture overnight, and when business and loyalty collide, it's always the human being who pays the price. The Molly Qerim departure saga is nowhere near finished, not by a long shot. As she gears up for her next big move and First Take struggles to find its new rhythm without her, the real story is only just beginning. Every new detail, every industry whisper keeps exposing more about what really went down behind those ESPN doors. Because this isn't just about one woman leaving one show, it's a peek behind the curtain of modern sports media, where fame, power, and loyalty constantly collide. It shows how even the brightest careers come with a heavy cost and how success in this business can demand more than anyone ever expected. Thanks for watching. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Molly made the right move, or is there more to this story? Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and stay tuned, because the next chapter in this drama is coming fast. See you in the next one.